thing that I do know about Shimshon and Raphael is that I find out it's a very good test for me, because I'm never quite sure how frum people are. And when I've met someone for the first time and they inquire about my grandchildren, I say to them, I've got a grandchild called Shimshon Raphael. If they look blank, then I assume that they are not in the religious strata that they should be. However, if they immediately say Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, then I know I'm with somebody who is extremely religious.
Here's me, Shimshon Raphael. Here's my Ima. Here's Bobby. Here's Bobby's Abba. And Bobby and Zadie are over here. And their Ima is Julia, the daughter of Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch. And the Ima is called after Julia.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm called after Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch. I know that I'm named after Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, but I don't know very much about him. So please, can you tell me something about him?
Rabbi Hirsch was born 200 years ago.
200 years after his birth, or thereabouts, people are still being named after him, which leads me to believe that he was obviously an exceptional man.
In his 20s, he'd written 2 books, The 19 Letters and Horeb. Both of them caused a stir.
And as a teenager, I very much enjoyed reading his works. I recommend them.
The first book I read was 19 Letters, then I read Judaism Eternal. This Pesach I was reading the Hirsch Haggadah. And there's always something new and very themic and relevant. I don't think I'm very passionate about Judaism, but I'm also a modern person. Work on the internet and all these kind of things, and it was great to find that kind of combination that worked for me.
Rabbi Hirsch was very much in contact with the common man. He wrote his Torah for the common man. Shimshon Raphael Hirsch was a very successful Rav of a very prosperous and large community in Moravia.
He was a big cheese. He was a big macher. He was a leader of a huge community, tens of thousands of Jews.
He left the security of being a rabbi in Moravia, where he'd been responsible for 50,000 Jews, to go to a small community of only 100 members in Frankfurt.
And he gave all that up to go to Frankfurt, where he started the Austrittsgemeinde. Austritts means they stepped away, they stepped out of the congregation because the congregation had gone wrong. The congregation was not any longer following the precepts of Moshe Rabbeinu and Hashem Yisbarach.
He wasn't happy with the way Jewry was developing. He wasn't happy with the society he had to deal with. And he left it all to start a small kahila from scratch, from ground zero, and build it the way he wanted.
And during his life he had many achievements. He was brave and he wasn't frightened of giving his views at a time when there was confusion amongst the Jewish community in Frankfurt. There were those that were traditionalists, and there were those who believed in modernity, or enlightenment as it was called.
People tried to compromise, and Shimshon Raphael Hirsch stood up against that, uncompromising, truthful, genuine, righteous.
He fought mighty battles against Apikosim, the Reform, who were powerful and vicious and attacked him in the cruelest possible ways. And yet, he wrote a Pirush on Chumash and other things. His Limud HaTorah was so incredibly strong, and obviously written with such a menuchas hanefesh, how he was able, in the middle of these mighty battles, to sit down and learn with such hasmada and with such peace of mind, to make diyukim in every pasuk. So amazing how he was able to balance. How could someone be fighting on one hand, on the other hand, have such peace and such depth in his learning?
It's not so well known, but he was really the founder of the Beis Yaakov movement. Much credit is given in America to Sarah Schneer, but if you read her memoirs, you'll see that she was influenced by a speaker who quoted Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch. Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch was the first to have education for women, and Sarah Schneer actually mimicked that and gained all her knowledge from his words and his writings. So he's really responsible for education of girls, even in America.
He took a much more positive view towards work, and also towards studying of secular subjects. Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch took a much more positive view towards the secular world.
Rav Shamshon Raphael Hirsch brought to life to us the concept of Torah in Derech Eretz. That Torah is not just something that's theoretical, but it's really a part of our everyday life, every moment of the day.
He started a new type of Judaism, which was based on being modern, being involved with the world, and at the same time being true to the Torah and true to God, right? Torah in Derech Eretz.
Our Torah is Torah in Derech Eretz. You cannot be a decent Jew, no matter what you do, if you have no Derech Eretz, if you have no integrity, if you have no honesty.
Such a big part of what he says is based on living Yahadut to the full, which obviously means also living it in the land of Israel, where you can keep so many facets of the Torah that you can't keep living outside Israel. As in your Posha B'Chukotai, when it writes about, when Shimshon Raphael Hirsch writes about the keeping Shnat Shemitah and how the land longs for the Jews.
Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, he was not so much of a Zionist.
There's a quote that apparently Shimshon Raphael Hirsch used a lot, and he would say, "Glat kosher, glat yosher."
He coined the expression glat kosher, glat yosher. Everything one does has to be under the Torah.
And that kashrus and yashrus, he used to say, go together. You have to be fair and you have to be honest, and this is the basis of Torah min hashamayim.
And he was absolutely scrupulous in anything to do with money. He didn't accept a penny that wasn't earned honestly, on which taxes hadn't been paid, on which masa hadn't been given. And if he thought somebody had given him a contribution and it wasn't quite all right, he'd either return it or pass it on to someone, to some other institution that didn't mind. He was very, very careful about money which came his way, to the point that he was nifta. He died in 1888.
He was employed for the year, and he was always paid for the quarter before he worked, and he was very uncomfortable about that.
In other words, he would get paid on 1st of January, and that would be for January, February and March. And he received his payment, and he wasn't feeling so very well. He was, I think, 80 years old.
So he instructed his children that If he if he's nifter, they should refund the part that he hasn't paid.
And it so happened that he died on the very last day of the quarter, which I find very moving.
His purpose and his challenge was to strengthen Orthodox Jewry, and he succeeded in doing that almost single-handedly.
Because as far as I understand at the time, it was either or. You had to choose. You had to either be, old-fashioned and sit in the ghetto and eat herring, or go out and be part of the world. And he found a model that was attractive to German Jewry, was attracted to people, that let them have both worlds. Let them, on the one hand, be part of the world and be involved with the world. On the other hand, stay loyal, committed, ideal Jews.
There was such a tremendous amaratzis, lack of knowledge, lack of appreciation. And Shimshon Raphael Hirsch crystallized the essence of Judaism, the essence of Rotzon Hashem, which influenced not only Judaism, but the whole world. And this is our legacy from Shimshon Raphael Hirsch.
Thank you for telling me about Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch. Please can you tell me how I could be influenced by him?
One thing that must be said about somebody who is having people called after him hundreds of years after his death, or 100 more years after his death, is that he must have had a very distinguished and good name. And I think that's extremely important for every individual, that they have a good name.
I hope you have, Rafael, what I had from the original Shimshon Raphael, which is a help consolidating and merging Judaism with my life.
Everything I read about R.Shimosh Hirsch, I see personified in Mommy. The love of emes. Loving people and being warm to them, but nothing standing in the way of emes. Seeing things as they are and acting accordingly.
The Mummy, who's of course an Einikel of Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, she's exactly that. An Eved Hashem. Everything is just serving a Kodesh Baruch Hu. There's only one role in her life, which is serving Kodesh Baruch Hu. The bulk of his life was Limud HaTorah, to learn Torah with the full depth. But it was the same thing. He was serving a Kodesh Baruch Hu.
My message to you, Raphael, is that you have to have the strength and the belief and be able to convince other people that you're right. That is how Rabbi Hirsch succeeded. Sometimes you'll get knocks, sometimes you will be unappreciated, but think of your great ancestor, in spite of his ups and downs, achieved great things for the Jewish people.
Limud HaTorah, to somehow to make that, keep that the focal part, to make the Torah the Ikka and everything else the Tofel. The Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch obviously stole moments he didn't have. He stole hours and hours he didn't have in the middle of these world historical battles, and he spent hours and hours and hours learning Torah.
I think I can already actually see some of those great qualities in Shimshon Raphael, because I understand he is not just an academic studier of the Torah, not just an academic Jew. He's very much a leader, and that's something that I think I can see quite clearly, that he's somehow obtained through his genes from Shimshon Raphael Hirsch himself.
And you're living your great-great-great-grandfather's dream of keeping Torah to the full. You're somebody who loves going on Tiulim, and loves the land, loves going to springs, goes on walks with or without Sheleg in at every opportunity, fought for the land in Gush Katif and continues to fight for the land of Israel. Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch would be so proud to have a grandson like you.
I have seen Raphael being a tremendous support to his father in the collecting money and processing it and bagging it. And counting it, all the money that's collected for Lamana Chai, whether it's for Hanukkah or Purim or whatever. And he's a tremendous help, and I can see, Raphael, that you're really very, very good at it and very careful. And therefore I think that this aspect of Shimshon Raphael's life and the things that he believed so strongly in really applies to you very, very easily.
Raphael has shown tremendous attachment to Lamana Chai, tremendous innovation to Lamana Chai for helping people and for helping us. And he innovated projects in his school in Ahavat Yisrael. When it came to the Rappaport project, the Ahavat Yisrael project, so Raphael was the man in front of the scenes. Raphael came up with the idea that for every 100 shekel that a person would come and collect, he would get one ticket. Therefore, motivating the boys to get more and more and more, to have more tickets and more chances to win. By the way, I must say that Raphael excluded himself from the Hagralah because of being a Nogei B'Davar. And if anyone deserved the Hagralah prizes, it was Raphael. So in the two projects alone, Raphael Morris, far away from Barmitzva at that point, raised almost 25,000 shekel for Lamana Chai and the families that we support. This project of Raphael inspired us to create a chesed educational program in all of the schools. Month by month, we go to different schools in the Ramat Beit Shemesh area to implement programs of tzedakah and chesed, all because of Raphael's original idea to do something in his school with his friends, with his classmates, for the poor and needy of Ramat Beit Shemesh.
Thank you for your advice. I will, B'ezrat Hashem bli neder, try to do it. Now, can you please give me a bracha for the Bar Mitzvah?
He should just continue to be the fulfillment of his great-great-great-grandfather, Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch's dream of living Yadut to the full, both in the social, the moral, and the chukot and the mitzvot, as in your Parsha this week. And just carry on being you, because we love you, we really all love you just as you are.
אני רק רוצה להגיד לשמשון רפאל שהוא ילד מקסים. מה שאני רואה ממנו באמת לומד תורה רציני, וכל הכבוד לו, ואני מאחלת לו שימשיך לגדול ככה עד 120 מכל הבחינות, מבחינה רוחנית, ושיהיה רק טוב בחיים. בהצלחה רבה.
I'd like to bless him that he should keep on going in the way that he is, and I think that he will succeed to be a good Jew, to combine Torah and Derech Eretz, Torah and being a worldly person as well, as Rabbi Shimshon Raphael Hirsch taught, and I wish him every success in the future.
He should become a great Talmid Chacham, a great tzaddik, a great Eved Hashem, to follow Mosai Yegu Maisai the Maisai Boisai, that we should follow in the pure, straight path of the Torah, to be like Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch, to be like my parents, to be great tzaddikim, and to be a real Eved Hashem.
My bracha is that you should be gebenched in all your financial transactions. They should always be straight and honest, and you should have enough to live on and enough to be able to help other Jews who need help. And you should always be an active part of the community in which you find yourself, just like your parents are.
Rafaeli, you should continue being a mensch as you are. Someone really who knows what he wants and who transmits happiness to everyone who sees him. I'm very, very happy to meet you each time either I visit you or visit us in Efrat, and I hope that this will continue for many, many years.
There's a special tefillah. Yehirat Zayin Ha'anafim Yeyu Daimim L'Shrashim. Kadosh Baruch Hu should bend you, that you should resemble the great roots from which you're nourished.
The fact that we come from such an incredible yichus from Raphael Hirsch, without him, who knows what Klal Yisrael would look like today, what Chinuch would look like today. And his godless and Torah and Yerushalayim and serious nefesh for Klal Yisrael. So it makes a person feel that one has a responsibility to live up to that. And that pride, which is a correct pride that all our families should have, and especially the Barmitzva Bacha Shimshon Rafael, who carries the name, when he hears his name Shimshon Rafael, so he realizes that there's an expectation, there's a responsibility, and there's an ability for him to grow and to steig and to become, and to be a covered for the whole of Klal Yisrael.